Hello, everyone. I want to start the first virtual meetup of the series, I hope, and I'm glad to start it. I invited great speakers for our first meetup, and I would like to tell you more about the Hedera Hashgraph as platform and the opportunities that it provides to developers and investors and users at all. And I wanted to show how Hedera Hashgraph works. And I want to invite first speaker, Greg Scullard. Sorry if I misspell your name.
You did very well.
Oh, thank you, Greg. Yes, let's start.
Okay, so let me start up some slides. I'm assuming, hang on. This didn't start very well. I need to share this one. That'll be better. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so thanks for the introduction. So I'm Greg Scullard, a lead developer advocate here at Hedera Hashgraph. It's been nearly 2 years since I joined. And I'll give you an overview of Hedera as a whole, the technology, the governing council, and so on and so forth. So it's all about trust. Human interactions depend on trust, and businesses need to run on trust. And as a result of that, a lot of intermediaries have arisen over the years just to do one thing, and that's to act as a trust broker. So we can see all those intermediaries are a very large industry. They're a cost to doing business. They can be slow and expensive, but their role is to create the trust between individuals and businesses that are trying to collaborate. And that is needed for trillions of very important business events happening on a daily basis. This could be an activity log for compliance. It could be songs that are streamed via a music service for IP rights management, or bids on an online auction, or lots of other things. All of those are transactional events that we have to be able to trust, and those brokers are typically there to provide that capability nowadays. So we believe that we're entering into an era of what we call programmatic trust. Over the past century or so, there have been changes in technology that have fundamentally shifted the way that we write, we read, we share and collaborate in general. So starting roughly when I was born, or before the 70s, before I was born even, I guess, was the analog era, where all documentation was paper-based and everything was shared fairly slowly via telegrams or post, mailed to various auditors and intermediaries again for verification and sign-off. Then in the 70s, we moved into a digital era where mainframe computers became available. Data inputs was faster, more accurate and editable. And at the same time, more data was being generated and stored by those applications running on mainframes and computers. But there was still lots of friction sharing that data. We still had to, print and mail the information, again, so that auditors and intermediaries could sign off and approve the various operations, or verify them anyway. Then we got to the internet era in early 2000. The internet was born properly, connecting lots of computers together, and that massively improved access to data and also collaboration. While data was still stored in centralized locations, controlled typically by single authorities, it was easier to share that information amongst others, but we still needed a third party to validate the data was, hadn't been tampered with or was accurate. And we now believe, as I said, that we're entering into, or in the sort of last 10 years or so, we've entered into a new era of trust, where blockchain has started to enable us to do things in a fundamentally better and revolutionary way, which enables the same kind of creative forces that we saw with the internet era. So we believe that this will create new industries. It may affect existing ones, but it will transform supply chains, revolutionize banking, and generally create more efficiency in all kinds of business interactions. So Hedera is the next generation public distributed ledger, right? The first generation of blockchain was Bitcoin. It showed the world we could create decentralized trust in data. The main use case there being ownership of cryptocurrency and accounts. But it was architected in a way that limits its performance. Its security is based on limiting its performance, and that's allowing 3 to 5 transactions per second with variable time to confirm transactions, depending on the level of trust that you want to have in each of those transactions. Then Ethereum came along. Ethereum smart contracts brought about programmable trust and the creation of digital assets over the Ethereum platform, but it's still limited to 12 to 25 transactions per second. The finality is still within minutes or within hours, again depending on the level of finality you're looking for. So the third generation is Hedera Hashgraph. It was architected from the ground up to offer computational trust at the scale of the modern web. The throughput for Hedera is in the tens of thousands per second on ledger with no layer 2 solutions, and that's far exceeding previous generations of DLTs. And Hedera does so without compromising security or stability. So let's look at the technology that enables us to achieve those claims. We looked at, or we recognized that there were 4 fundamental obstacles in public DLTs to mass adoption. So we decided that we need to solve for those. And those 4 requirements are performance. You need a public DLT that performs at scale. 10, 20, 30, 50 transactions per second is not sufficient for enterprises around the world to build trust on a public DLT. It needs to be secure, of course. You don't want to have to run the risk of losing assets or losing information or it being tampered with. It has to be stable, and by that we believe that it's important for the network not to fork and for it to remain a single network that's available to enterprises, rather than have the possibility of 2 or 3 or 4 variants, which in the context of digital assets is a major issue. If you tokenize a property, a physical property on the ledger, and that ledger forks, you could end up in a situation where there are 2 owners, if you want, of that same property in the digital world, whereas in the physical world, only one has the keys to the door lock. So stability is essential for adoption at scale. And then governance, which we'll talk about later on, is also critical to adoption of a public DLT. So Hashgraph is not a blockchain. It's a distributed ledger, which is a more generic term for blockchain-based ledgers. We use a gossip protocol with a virtual voting algorithm to achieve consensus efficiently. And this voting algorithm is asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerant, which is the highest level of security for any distributed network. And as a result of its efficiency, it does not require heavy electricity usage, which is becoming more and more of an issue for anyone adopting a technology nowadays. You know, the being green or certainly not wasting energy is seen as a positive. So the third generation public distributed ledger that I talked about can achieve 10,000 or more transactions per second, as I said, on ledger, and that can be done for a very low cost or very low transaction fee. You can see here thousandth of a US dollar for a transaction. And we reach finality within 3 to 5 seconds instead of minutes or hours. And that is with 100% finality. So there is no rolling back of transactions. There is no pruning of trees that can lead to changes to you know, previously approved transactions, if you want. That 3 to 5 seconds is with 100% finality, which is pretty unique within our industry. So continuing on with the technology, we have the Hashgraph consensus layer at the bottom, which is being supported or operated by the Hedera mainnet. On top of this Hashgraph consensus, we've deployed 4 services. A cryptocurrency service, which is traditional cryptocurrency, allows you to hold accounts and exchange cryptocurrency with other account holders, and also pay for transactions. We have Solidity smart contracts, same as Ethereum. You can port your smart contracts across to Hedera with hardly any modifications at all. And a file service, which allows you to store files on the network, and this is very different to existing distributed file services where the file in itself is held as a whole on every node, as opposed to being distributed in a kind of peer-to-peer fashion. And then finally, more recently, we've introduced a consensus service, which is the rawest form of service that we can possibly offer, in that it pretty much, you know, mimics the Hashgraph consensus itself, and it enables for private DLTs, for example, to leverage a public consensus service and increase their security as a result. So on top of these services, we see a vast range of third-party applications that can be developed using the SDKs, and then those applications will be used by end users. And all of this is obviously managed by the Hedera Governing Council, which I'll touch on in a second. So just skipping very quickly through the different services, the cryptocurrency service I mentioned, very efficient, very fast. We're seeing, you know, 2 to 3 seconds of latency in transfers with 100% finality. The smart contracts using Solidity, so you can basically, as I said before, transfer your existing Ethereum smart contracts over to Hedera and benefit from the 100% finality, low consensus time, and lower fees than available on Ethereum. The file service allows you for storing files or any amount of data, and this can be done very cost effectively if you store a hash of the file and the file itself on the side ledger or the centralized provider. And storing the hash itself gives you the ability to prove that the file that you're looking at is the genuine article and hasn't been tampered with. It also supports a revocation service where 2 people can or may have to or would have to sign for a modification to the file, but any one of the 2 can delete it, and this can be used for storing certificates or approvals or things such as that, things of that nature. And the consensus service, built natively, it's as fast as the cryptocurrency service, so 10,000 plus transactions per second, and it guarantees the order of operations or transactions sent to the Hedera network. Each consensus transaction gets given a fair timestamp, as any transaction does on Hedera, but also a running hash, which within a given topic ensures that every single message logically follows the previous one, and that no tampering can take place. So let's look at where we are today. Since we launched mainnet in late summer last year, we have over 35 applications in production on mainnet today. More than 8,000 developers attending hackathons, meetups, and active in Discord. We are launching a new Hedera 20 hackathon on May the 1st this year. So head over to hedera20.com if you would like more information or even to participate. And the network is handling approximately 1 million transactions per day as I speak. And we've reached over 100 million transactions on mainnet since September, which is yeah, a huge amount of transactions given the amount of time that mainnet has been in public operation. Looking at a couple of use cases, you've probably heard of ad stacks. They're in the advertising space and they're using mainnet today. What they're trying to achieve is to reduce fraud within the advertising industry and also reduce cost, where 75% of advertising fees typically go to intermediaries. So if you spend $100 on advertising, only 25 of those dollars are actually used for advertising itself. So they're trying to improve the level of trust through more transparency, fraud detection, and arguably reducing intermediaries to make advertising more efficient. Apr is in the healthcare space, and you will have seen a lot of publications from Jim Nasser, their VP, who is using Hedera Hashgraph to fix drug shortages due to a lack of transparency in the supply chain for pharmaceutical drugs. They're using it as an auditable trail of events in near real time for track and trace capability. And that allows them to not use a smart contract. It makes the whole solution much more efficient and cost effective than using smart contracts. Yeah, they're also deeply involved with COVID. As you probably know, they run a very interesting dashboard and also use Hedera Hashgraph to log events. So that technology on Hedera Hashgraph gives us a potential of just over 800 million transactions per day on a single shard and on Ledger. So again, no layer 2 solutions here, no side chains. This is all on Ledger in a single shard. Now let's move on to the governing council, which is pretty unique for Hedera, or certainly within the DRT space. So the council governing Hedera will be made up of up to 39 global organizations. We have approximately, I think, 14 today, and we're working to secure the remaining participants up to 39. They will be across different industries and across different continents, which ensures fairness and avoids any likelihood of them colluding to negatively affect the network. Every member is required to run a node, and they're not compensated in any means beyond what the nodes receive in terms of payments for participating in the network or in consensus. They have equal vote, so 2.6% or thereabouts influence, and there are several committees that have been created to govern various aspects of the Hedera evolution over time. Each of those council members is limited to a 3-year term, and they can do so up to for up to 2 consecutive terms. So the council will naturally rotate over time with members leaving and new members joining. as time goes on. So what do they do? They meet quarterly. So far, they've always met in person. I'm not sure about the next meeting. This may well be virtual, but they've always met in person, and they decide on features for the platform. They drive the product roadmap. They review and maybe modify the fee model. They decide on node incentives, and they also manage the treasury. But they don't own any of the treasury. The management is delegated to them, but they don't actually own that treasury at all. That remains the property of Hedera. So that strong governance gives us technical controls over no forking. We will ensure that every node upgrades simultaneously. And we also have legal controls over forking through patents and IP protection, but no license is required to use the network. Anyone can use the APIs or the SDKs. The only fees are the transaction fees. And we will open the code for review and open source the services layer this year, I believe. So who's on the council today? We have, you can see the names there, Boeing, Google, FIS, Magalu, Wipro, Nomura, and so on and so forth. So this list will grow, and the slides will suddenly become too small at some point to host everyone. But this is the caliber of the council members that we're recruiting. I'm conscious of time, so I will skip through. I will skip through the team. So in 2020, we've arguably ticked off the hardware wallet integration. From a roadmap point of view, we have Nano X and Nano S support. Mirror nodes will become available to non-Hedera members to run. And we will open review the Hashgraph consensus algorithm and open source the Hedera services and tools, as I said. So yeah, that's 2020 in terms of roadmap. So what can you do now with us? You can either, as an enterprise, work with us towards a workshop or becoming a governing organization. You could look to be part of the governing council, or if you're a developer, build a decentralized application using our services. Okay, and that concludes the slides. So thank you very much. If there are any questions on the slides, I'm more than happy to take them.
Yes, Greg. Thank you very much. We received just four questions already, and can I ask you? Yes.
Sure.
First question from Licha. Transaction costs and performance are impressive. Is there any guarantee that nothing will change in the future? Ethereum also promised a lot of things.
Yes, it is very impressive, I have to admit. The network today is throttled at 10,000 transactions per second. But we've tested in our labs, and we definitely stand by the claims that we're making. Besides that, there was a recent meetup with one of the algorithms developers, where he highlighted the fact that further improvements are in progress. So even though we're comfortable with the numbers that we're giving, we're seeing that we can make significant improvements over those numbers already.
Great to hear. And next question: how does Hedera support projects and developers? That's from
So we have So the hackathon is one. So in terms of support, I guess it's more, you know, there's a prize at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. In day-to-day, there is a Discord where most of the developers that work with Hedera or work with Hedera as a product, not for the company, come and ask questions or have various discussions on you know, on a technical basis, and I often participate there. We also have a boost program, which I think you'll probably find on our webpage. So you can apply to join the boost program, and we will help you with your initiative. You know, subject to an approval criteria. I guess I haven't looked in the detail, but those are the three main avenues that are available today.
Sounds great. And question from Reza from Indonesia. We deployed the project on another platform. Can we use Hedera Consensus Service?
Yes, absolutely. So the Hedera Consensus Service is, like I said, you know, the raw consensus algorithm, and we've recently built plugins for Quorum and Hyperledger as examples, where you can use the Hedera Consensus Service to augment a private Hyperledger network with public trust, or a Quorum network with public trust. So if you have any application that requires, I'd say at a very high level, sending messages to each other through a trusted means, then you can use the Hedera Consensus Service to do so. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what that application is in particular, but yes, I'm pretty sure the Hedera Consensus Service could help there.
Great news. And I've got four questions, and fourth question is any news about new council members?
Any news about new council members? I'm not allowed to tell you, but there will be some.
Great, great. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg. Very impressive.
My pleasure. Thank you. I've stopped sharing, so you should be able to pass the ball on to whoever else is next.
And next, Tom Trowbridge. So, Tom, you can share screen with us.
Hey there.
Great.
Nice to see everybody. It's great to follow Greg, and given that his full background on Hedera, I'm going to take a slightly different take. I'll share my screen just so everybody is aware. I was formerly a part of Hedera. I helped build the business, basically founded with Lehman Manson, a couple of others, led it from before it existed, before we had the name, until we launched the network and left about a year ago. I've been in sort of technology and telecom since 1996. So what's Hedera? I think we've covered, also importantly here, guys, I've left the company over a year ago. All of this is based on publicly available information. I do not speak for Hedera. These are my opinions, my views, based on basically everything I know and everything I pay attention to. I'm also have an incentive here. I'm a large coin holder and remain a large holder, so I clearly want the best for Hedera. But you'll see this presentation is both discusses Hedera. It talks about it from a very high level, even to a different angle than what Greg took, and then gets very specific into some of the competitors. And I think that given my perspective of being outside the company, I feel a little bit more ability to be more direct about some of the I think the shortcomings of some of the competitors. So, you know, Hedera, quickly, it's you know, bottom layer, I think everyone knows that. Network launch in August of 18, open access was September of 19, as people know. And it is a governing council, I think, sets us apart. That's important, and a high transaction volume with less than 2-second finality. I want to talk about late entrance to mature industries. I mean, Hedera came about long after Bitcoin. Ethereum launched in, 2013, I believe. So we are quite behind, it would seem, from other people in blockchain space. But I wanted to put a little bit of context in this and look at other companies that we take totally for granted as basically the dominant leaders in their industry.
Sorry, Tom. Sorry for interruption. Can you please look a little bit lower because we see only. Yeah.
Oh,
fine. Thank you.
Sorry, let me share my screen. That's what I meant to be doing. I thought my screen was being shared. Hold on a second here. There we go. Hold on a second here. Let me get my. Hold on a second here. My apologies. I thought my screen was being shared this whole time. There we go. You got it? Yeah. My screen now?
Good.
Good. So this is a more important piece of it anyway. So we all take for granted Amazon, Google as these companies that would dominate industries. And I think now it's important to take a step back and realize when they started, they were entering very mature industries that they wouldn't have seemed to have a chance. Amazon had $115,000 in revenue, while Barnes & Noble had $2 billion in 1994. Google started with 0 market share. Yahoo dominated 60%. Salesforce had nothing compared to Oracle's $9 billion. And Apple entered the iPhone market with 0 share, with Nokia dominated 65%. And we forget even in our own industry, Binance, 2017 started from nothing and is the largest exchange a year later. So I just think it's interesting to see how late entrants can really dominate markets when they do certain things. And so we'll go into that a little bit further. So, Hedera raised kind of top 15 in terms of ICO capital, 124 million. Most of those were base layer technologies. Of those base layers, about half are pretty challenged. EOS, there have been some leaks that reveal the corrupt voting practices that EOS has. And so while they certainly exist and they certainly have a significant amount of volume, I don't think any institutions will take them seriously. And there will continue to be games and things that work on EOS without a doubt. But for real significant institution use cases, I think they will never be used. Telegram, everyone's very aware of the SEC issues, without a doubt. I think something will end up launching there at some point, but we don't have it. We don't have it right now. Definity delayed years. Who knows if it'll ever launch? Polkadot's delayed. I think they're probably coming close to launch at some point. Same with Filecoin. We'll see kind of how that ends up and if they meet the promise of it. And Dragon Coin was a big raise that I'm not familiar with, but I know it's worth very little right now. And then if you look at the applications that are actually out there right now that are in the base layer space, Ethereum, IOTA, Neo, Cardano, Tezos, they're trying to get these high volume mission critical use cases, but you sort of think about the dog chasing the car, trying to grab the bumper. And if they get it, what are they going to do? They just don't have the ability to handle either the scale of the transactions or the reliability. And that's true for all of those. And so I think you just sort of wonder all these discussions of real use cases, but they're really constrained by their technology. And I think that's really put a limit on this whole industry's growth. And so let's talk about Ethereum for a second. I think this hasn't gotten nearly enough attention, but the March 12th crash, gas on Ethereum spiked 7,000%. And that led to a MakerDAO $4 million loss. And, what does that 4,000% mean? Put it in our world context. It's sort of as if we're at home, in doing isolation for Corona, and you have to do an interview with a potential job. And that moment, your cell phone bill goes from $50 a month to $40,000. I mean, that's what, a 700X is. And if you can't pay that phone bill that moment, you don't get to make the phone call. And that's what happened on March 12th. And that's what led to people losing their security in the MakerDAO fiasco. And, I don't see how you can credibly claim to have an institutional product when you can have 7,000 price increase completely unpredictably and then have it go. It didn't last very long, but that's still a very real possibility. And by the way, this is what, 6 years after Ethereum's launched, and they still can have that type of thing happen, which is pretty remarkable. Importantly, Ethereum was never intended to be scalable, and there's some things that Vitalik says that, quotes where he said never was intended to be scalable. And so people talk about scaling solutions, and whether that's for Cardano or Ethereum or whatever it is, they all have security trade-offs. And I just mentioned Lightning Network here. I put that headline here because the Lightning Network, I think, is the most well-known and used scaling solution in the market. It's obviously for Bitcoin, not for Ethereum, but this most well-known, most used scaling solution has multiple security issues that continually are identified. So don't think that scaling solutions are going to be a panacea for this slow transaction volume, because it just introduces a whole nother level of complexity and risk. So Hedera has an institutional strategy. And so, Greg spoke about this, but a real focus is our blue chip institutional partners. But they're more than partners. They're governors. They own and oversee and control Hedera. And the question I think is more important than we have them is why do we have them? And we have them because we want this network to work for institutions. And we want it to be governed by the companies that are using it. And, who governs other networks? Well, it's coin holders govern some, like they're the ones that do the votes for the block producers in EOS. A few developers call the shots in traditional proof of work systems, obviously combined with miners. And in none of those circumstances are the real users, the people actually using the technology, the ones that are ensuring that it's working for them. And Hedera's real focus here is to have these big companies that we think will have massive use cases. I'm talking about tens of thousands of TPS per second, TPS, actually help govern and make this network as stable and usable for them going forward. That gives them the comfort that they can deploy their mission critical applications on it. It also helps Hedera know what to do, what to build, what to prioritize to actually get these type of applications on it. So it's very synergistic, and I think the incentives are aligned to make this the most used network globally by having these companies on it. And so I just listed a couple of names here, but Deutsche Telekom, Swisscom, you saw them all from Greg's slide. These are global. They're in a variety of different industries, all different geographies. And, I think there'll be more to come. I candidly think, just to manage people's expectations, and again, this is just my own personal view, that given the Corona crisis and the big kind of impact that that's having on a lot of companies, I would expect the innovation departments to be a little bit less important than they were historically. And so my expectations are not to have, a long list of companies joining quickly. I'm sure there are plenty in the pipeline, but I would just think that most companies right now are pretty occupied with just making sure their businesses survive. And so I would just be a little, give the team a break here, given the crisis we're going through right now. But this high volume use cases are enabling sort of solutions that haven't ever before been contemplated for blockchain. Another company that's focused on institutions is obviously Ripple. And I just mentioned this because we're not the only ones looking at institutions. Ripple's probably the most successful there. And they have a great list of financial partners, but it's worth digging into what drives their coin value. And, this is just sort of a pet peeve of mine, but each partner only needs 20 XRP to be part of the network. That means if they had 10 million partners, that would just use 0.2% of the supply. And 1 million financial transactions require just 10 XRP coins. So, what drives the, multi-billion-dollar value of that is very hard for me to understand. Furthermore, when there's a digital US dollar and you can send it, from one account to the central bank to another, as I think is probably within a year, maybe a little bit more to happen here, what on earth do you need Ripple for? So, I think that just because I just called them out because it is another one that seems to focus on institutions, but in reality is quite different. So let's talk about Hedera again, because, Ripple I mentioned is financial use cases. Hedera has use cases across every single sector. And Greg mentioned a couple of them. But there's a recent one I think is interesting, which is something called the Coupon Bureau. And in the US, 300 billion coupons are issued every year. And this Coupon Bureau helps manage all these coupons. And actually it's 300 million coupons are issued every year. And they are, the Coupon Bureau, it basically manages these and has set up to basically eliminate fraud and to use the best technology to track and basically automate the deployment and use of these coupons. And so Hedera is the only technology they found that could meet this level of scale. And so if every coupon was used on Hedera, that's 8,000 TPS. And that's transactions per second, okay? That's more than most networks can do. That's more than most networks, or any network besides Hedera, is possible to use. And that's just one company with the coupon use case. Now, clearly, a very small percentage of coupons get, so we're nowhere near needing, Hedera is nowhere near that type of execution. But I'd argue that once you can use coupons really quickly, and once there's a lack of fraud, people are going to be using and issuing many more coupons, and that whole marketplace is going to grow. But I'm just giving that as an example of a use case that was not ever even contemplated with other types of ledgers, and the massive scale that is at least a possibility out there for one company. So if we go forward, looking at Hedera, it's got, the other point I think is important is the regulatory side. Hedera has spent a lot of time getting the regulatory system right, and it's worked with the SEC, with the Department of the Treasury, with a variety of very important regulatory bodies. And I think that you can see that sort of happened very quietly, but you can easily see what happens with a company like Telegram that takes a different route, and the enormous challenges you face if you do not do it the right way. Unfortunately, or fortunately, when you do it wrong, there's all kinds of headlines and press, and it's very clear because the SEC sues you. If you do it right, nothing happens. And so you never hear about it, you never know about it. All that happens is a coin gets issued and nothing happens. And so I think there's a lot less press on that, obviously, and less well known, because there's just no story, because nothing's happened. But Hedera clearly has great technology, speed. The other thing we haven't talked about too much, and Greg didn't go into as much as well, is security. And there are other companies coming out now, whether it's an Algorand or a Avalanche, that claim to be next generation and have thousands of transactions a second. None of them offer the security of Hedera. And I think what you'll see is that as institutions in particular want to deploy, they aren't going to settle for low security or anything other than the highest level of security. And so the Hedera is asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerant. We can certainly talk about that, but it effectively means that it is by far the hardest system to compromise. And I don't know why anyone who had any type of serious application would want to use a system that had a lesser grade of security. So that is, I think, something which no one's really hasn't really become a big impact yet. I think that will be at some point soon. Institutions are clearly interested in using Hedera, as you can tell by the council, more so, I think, in a real way than any other layer. And people are actually using it. I mean, the transaction volume on Hedera, as Greg mentioned, 4 months after launching, Hedera was at about 70% of Ethereum's volume. And that is just unprecedented, and I think was also not widely recognized. So I think that is a it took you name the company, many years to get to anywhere near their largest competitor. And so I think I'm going to go back to where I started with these companies and say, what are the attributes of these industry winners? Clearly Amazon has a superior offering and terrific execution, and Google has superior technology without a doubt. I think you can see Hedera has check marks on all of those. Salesforce is a very focused strategy in offering software as a service. and execution. You know, Hedera has that as well. Its strategy is clearly targeting institutions. It's executing on that well. It's doing it in a way that I don't think any other competitor really is doing. Apple, very superior product that beat the Nokia phones. I think Hedera's transactions, risk, and speed show its product is far superior to anything else in the market. Apple also enabled a brand new ecosystem, the whole App Store, which didn't exist prior. And I think, you know, Hedera's, you know, speed is also going to lead to entirely new use cases that haven't before been even envisioned. And Binance, obviously, strategy focus, execution, and customer focus on Binance, I think, is a real point I should have mentioned. And I think Hedera's counsel shows its focus on its institutional customers by actually letting them own the network in a way that no other layer technology is offering. They may say that, but they're not actually doing it. So I think if you look at the attributes of all these industry and sector winners, you see patterns and you see what they've done. And I think you can see Hedera really has executed and is both the technology side, the strategy side, to show what it takes to win here. You know, Greg touched on this, but I just want to just show one set of slides, which I think are pretty fun on speed, because I think it makes it pretty visual. You know, one thing that Lehman always says, speed is a lie, because it depends on how many servers you have and how geographically dispersed they are, et cetera, but it's still sort of fun. So Bitcoin, as you know, is pretty slow. You know, Ethereum, about 13 cents, Ethereum about 25 transactions per second. The next generation are around 1,000, whether that's an EOS or you name it. And then Hedera, you know, we've been talking about 10,000, the network tests up to 100,000. So it's not, I think it's throttled right now. And I noticed Greg didn't talk about 100,000 TPS. So that is certainly not where the network is right now, but we know that it's capable of that. But let's put that into pictures. And so this map is actually accurate. And so you have a snail for, you know, Ethereum and a turtle, sorry, a turtle for Ethereum. And, you know, people say sometimes, and used to say in meetups I was at, well, gee, you know, the best technology doesn't always win. Are you sure that that's going to work? And I asked people, okay, how many of you took a horse to this conference? And the answer back then was universally 0, and everyone took a plane. And so the plane beat the horse. When you have a technology which is so far better, it wins because it opens up entirely new markets that never before were possible. And that's what we're talking about here is 100x improvement. And there's no technology that exists that was 100x improvement that did not win. You know, fiber beat, copper cables, right? Like you can, you know, the automobile beat the horse. Like when you're talking about orders of magnitude performance increase, it wins. Incremental, we can debate. And the Betamax VHS thing, we can debate. That's incremental. One was better, sure. Was it 100 times better, 10 times better? No way. So I think that's worth really having in mind. And I just love those pictures anyway. So Hedera is fast, fair, secure. So you know, with that, I will stop and happy to answer questions. You know, I can address, I guess, things related to, you know, my perspectives on this stuff. For anything really current on Hedera, I'm not the right person because obviously I'm not there. But I can also, I can talk about kind of the intent and the vision of, you know, what we were building and what continues to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We've got questions. First question. You talked about change of the crypto market after coronavirus crisis. Can you please explain it more specific? What do you expect from the end of this crisis? How do you see the world after that?
Well, listen, I think that there's a couple things, but big picture, we're going to see, and actually, just so everybody knows, I have a couple posts on Medium that talk about Hedera, and one of the I'm going to talk about now is worth reading as well. So you go to Tom Tro 4 on Medium, you'll see some of these pieces in a lot more detail. I think the main thing I see because of Corona is massive government printing, with 2 trillion in the U.S. going to probably 4 trillion happening everywhere. I think that's really positive for Bitcoin. Might be bad for the world, but it's really positive for Bitcoin. And I think we'll see that in gold and other things, real estate stuff appreciate. I think that then will be positive for other cryptocurrencies as well, as things generally go up with Bitcoin. But I expect Bitcoin to go up far faster and greater than others for the foreseeable future. My comment, I think, was that companies are probably, obviously are going to want to save costs. And so that should drive adoption. But there's when you have crises, there's a real tendency to retrench and to focus on their core business with a little bit less time to try something brand new. And so my comment, I think, was that, I expect new governing council members to be announced and to join, but I also don't expect that to be a really quick pace, because I think every company, every CEO, every CFO is just trying to keep the business from sinking. And that I just think they're like, I don't want to, whoa, hold on a second. So, in times are good, they've got time to do these things. So I guess I would just say, this crisis leads to Bitcoin doing well. I think other things do well also, but I wouldn't expect companies to be aggressively doing, cutting edge things right now.
Thank you. Great explanation. And I cut off provoked questions. So only good questions. What would you do differently if you had returned to the beginning of 2017?
Well, what I have been done differently, you mean as part of Hedera?
Yes,
I
I guess that's question of Reza from Indonesia.
I mean, listen, that's very hard to say. I guess the one thing I'm really looking forward to is the code release. I think that the code being released, and as I know you saw it on Greg's roadmap for this year in December, they said it was early this year, so I'm hoping Hedera releases it soon. I think that the lack of open source code has been a real stumbling block for the community overall. And I think that the more I dig into it, Hedera has such an advantage, and the institutions it has a part of it are so strong that it wouldn't matter if someone copied that code right now. And so I just think that the sooner that code is released, the better it will be for Hedera from a perception perspective. I think there's minimal sort of business risk from doing so.
Thank you. Great. And another question from China. What can you advise crypto investors, nowadays crypto investors, to back to the financial markets?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't feel very comfortable giving crypto advice here. My personal view, I hold, I hold a lot of Hedera, I hold Bitcoin, and I'm sure other things are going to go up a lot. I expect both Hedera and Bitcoin to do well. I can't give you a time frame on that. And I don't know, and I'm skeptical of a lot of the companies that I mentioned in the presentation. Does that mean they go down? No. Could they go up a lot? Maybe. But I'd be reluctant to give much more advice than those.
Thank you, Tom. Great presentation.
Great.
So, next I want to invite Alex Barutsky. He's one of the new generation of businessmen. He's a project of Hedera ecosystem from the very beginning of the Hedera ecosystem, as far as I remember. Sorry, you.
Sergey, for joining. Now, is it okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Chief of Business Development of OLPORTAL. It's a partner of Hedera, I hope so. And first of all, I would like to thank Hedera Hashgraph for the support they give us through their channels and through their Discord. And also thank you for support via your support system, because it's really important for us. OLPORTAL, it's a decentralized marketplace of neurobots, artificially powered neurobots. So our neurobots have, as you know, artificial intelligence, and we can use our bots in different fields and different industries. If you are interested in our project, you can download iMe Messenger. It's available on Apple Store and also on Google Play, and you can test and you can play with bots inside of this application. It's a partner application, and it's a part of our ecosystem. Using iMe Messenger, you can test how bots can enrich your communications and how bots can enrich your daily chats with your friends and with your partners. Of course, we have other bots which can enrich communications for customers and clients. We call it commercial bots, or we call it target bots. And these bots can enrich communication between clients and customers. I can give you several examples if you want. Let's say you are a regular user of your favorite messenger, and if you want to invite someone, let's say your friend, to drink a coffee, you just send a small chat message, let's drink a coffee. So your friend answers, okay, where do you want to meet? And if you have your messenger with OLPORTAL bot, you can get a hint from your bot, a hint like, let's meet in a cafe 1, because I have a promo code. So you select this hint from your messenger and send it to your friend. Your friend receives this message, and on the next day, let's say you meet with your friend in a cafe and use this promo code and pays for the coffee. So this promo code is used, and you just used this promo code, which was advised by our bot. So that's why we can give you small reward for using this bot. So cafe gets loyal customers and increases sales. Both users get advices and hints, and active users of our bots can get a reward in tokens for using OLPORTAL bots. It goes very easily, very native. It's not aggressive advertising. It's very polite form of recommendations and for advertising. Or I can give you another case. Let's say you are not on a quarantine right now and you can go to a movie or to a theater, and you want to invite someone to go to the movie. So you just select several hints from your bot inside your favorite messenger, and using these hints, you send one option to your friend. Let's say, let's go to Terminator 8 tomorrow to this cinema. This hint is prepared by the bot, and you just resend this hint, and your friends gets it, and after that, on next day, you paid for the movie, and we recorded this transaction, and also you can get a small reward for using this bot. When we talk about reward, we must be very transparent. So that's why we selected Hedera Hashgraph as a partner, because decentralized ledger offered by Hedera Hashgraph can be used in different ways, and we are planning to use Hedera Hashgraph for storage, and we will store all the significant transactions, all financial transactions of these bots in Hedera Hashgraph. So why we choose Hedera Hashgraph? Because it's secure, because it's fast, and because it's much cheaper than other platforms and other blockchains. Let's say it's, I can give you an example. When we made several tests on Ethereum, we were out of gas very, very fast. So that's why we selected DLT by Hedera Hashgraph. And also, I'd like to mention that OLPORTAL, it's an ecosystem of different instruments. We have a decentralized marketplace. We have a set of instruments for every user who can and who want to create his specific bot. And if this user creates the bot, this user can also rent this bot or sell this bot using our decentralized marketplace. So we invite all the users and all their companies to participate in our ecosystem, because I'm sure that every company should use bots, and many of them right now use bots in different industries. Let's say banks use bots, and HR agencies use onboarding bots, and aviation use also bots. So there are many examples, but we are creating first decentralized marketplace of bots, and our goal is to let our bots be presented in every messenger, every social network, every site, with ability to communicate with the users. I'm talking about online assistants and site assistants. So if you're interested in this field, in this idea, I welcome you to contact me to discuss the way of partnership or other cooperation or collaboration, because we are ready to collaborate with every company, every business, and we can offer our knowledge, and we can offer our developers to help them, to help these companies create bots for different use cases. So if you are interested to participate in ecosystem, and if you want to start using bots in your industry or in your business, please contact me. Also, I want to invite you to our website. It's allportal.ai, and we have also dozens of great articles on Medium channel. It's also medium.com/allportal.ai, and there are different articles about why we selected decentralized model of marketplace, how our bots can be used in different industries, in medical industry, in gaming industry, in communication field, etc. Please read these articles, and also if you have any questions, you can ask in this Medium portal. So, Sergey, do you have any questions for me recorded, or maybe?
Yes. I already got 3 questions from our auditory. First of all, is device on your background? What is it? Is this neurobot?
No, it's just a medal. Just a medal of my son.
Oh, you have to be so proud of that.
Yes, I'm very proud, so that's why I want to show it to everybody.
Yes, and a question from guy from China. I'm sorry, I can't read the hieroglyphs, so I can't spell his name. And is it possible to become a kind of super partner of OLPORTAL? Can I bring you another partners from China?
Yes, of course, and we will be very happy to receive your contact and your contacts, because we are ready to communicate and cooperate with everybody, every company, every business, because as I said, I'm sure that every business and every company will use bots in near future even if they don't think it's not necessary for them.
Fine. And question from our Reza from Indonesia, and he is asking you to share your success story with Hedera Hashgraph. How does Hedera Hashgraph support your project, and how Hedera Hashgraph can support another projects, if you can share this kind of experience?
I can explain by support of Hedera Hashgraph. Hedera Hashgraph has great community. They have a lot of developers, and they have developers who want to help. So our developers just connect with developers of Hedera Hashgraph, of Hedera Society, and they communicate in very positive and very productive way. So I'm sure that it's a very good cooperation, because I see the results.
Thank you, fine. And as far as I remember, Victoria wants to extend.
Yes, Victoria is here, and hello, Victoria. And I think he has a lot of to say about OLPORTAL. Victoria used to work for OLPORTAL for several years, and he can explain some technical things better than me. So please, Victoria, tell us something interesting about OLPORTAL, about how these bots work inside of these networks, neural networks. Please.
So maybe I'm not going too deep into technical aspect, as I'm not a technician specialist, but anyway, to look closer and to sum up what you have told us, told everyone about our project, I would like to emphasize some parts that we are not creating an absolutely new AI product. We are more focusing on creating an ecosystem for developing, for creating AI products, for integrating them into your daily communications, into your daily workflow for companies. We are not competing with AI giants like Google or Amazon. We are just creating an absolutely new environment for them. And the second part is that developing AI is very resource consuming, and it requires specialists, very qualified ones, to do that. And the way we tackle the issue, that we want to provide everyone, just common audience, an opportunity to become creators themselves. We want to provide a special tool set for them to create AI products, to create neurobots that can be implemented in their chats, in different messengers, in IME, or any others that can be integrated into our ecosystem. IME is a good example because we have some ready-made neurobots that users can download to their chats, and users are provided with ready replies. But our neurobots, they are not substituting humans. They are just suggesting you the way you can answer. And it's up to you to decide to use this reply or just to type your own answer. As for the kinds of neurobots we have fun bots that present pre-trained models that answer in the manner of different characters, living ones like celebrities, or fictional ones like characters from movies or from films. I'm going to share my screen. And you can see some pictures of our fun neurobots. You can see Marilyn Monroe, Squidward, and some other characters that are ready-made. And if you install our IME, our partner messenger IME, you can try using them. Up to now, we have neurobots in English and in Russian. Mind that they are different ones, and if you want the one in English, you need to download it from the marketplace. As for the kinds of neurobots we're going to have, fun bots you can see here on the screen. You can create your own artificial intelligence assistant. It's going to be a pre-trained model, which then will be able to learn through your chats, learn the way you communicate with certain people, and then it's going to provide you with ready-made answers. For example, Alex said he has a phrase like, it's going to be all right, everything's going to be fine, like his favorite, and he can train the model to answer in such a way, reacting to different trigger words. As for fun bots, we talked about character bots. Or for example, we can have some special purpose bots. If you need to communicate with your boss and to save your energy on composing different messages, you can retrain the model to give the appropriate answers to general trigger phrases. Or to communicate with your son or with your wife, you can pre-train the model to provide good answers in the way you like to have them. You won't need to type them anymore next time, and it's going to be easier, and it's going to bring you emotions to your daily chatting. For example, one day you don't want to spend, you cannot spend a lot of time composing a good answer, and you have the ready one. Neurobots, the commercial implementation of neurobots, you can see in our All Target service. This is a brand new, I dare say, the world's first system of native advertising in chat. As you know, people more react to the word of mouth than to usual advertising or pop-ups on the internet. They believe their friends, their parents, and other people more. You can become an expert. You can download a bot from the marketplace, a bot of any company that's going to have an advertising campaign. And every time this bot reacts to a trigger phrase, for example, if we have an automobile company, somebody writes you that, you know, my car has broken down. And you have a ready reply containing the name of the brand. For example, you know, BMW company has a new line of cars, you'd better buy a new one, and so on. And we can provide the reports to our advertisers, and so that they will be able to see their audience and how many times this reply with the name of their brand has been used during the campaign. Why it is beneficial for users? Why do we need to have this? By this service, not only by this, but as a part, we would like to provide users with the opportunity to have a passive income. It's a kind of incentive program. Every time you choose the message with the brand name, you get some rewards. And hopefully in the future we'll have the opportunity, we'll provide the opportunity for people to exchange their incentives to get money, hopefully. And for companies, it's going to be a new way of our advertising, more natural, more fluent, and without causing any disturbance. To promote services, it's the same part as commercial neurobots. We can have bank bots, insurance bots, and so on, offering different services, discounts, and other opportunities for users. In our structure, in the structure of our ecosystem, except for the special tool set providing users to create AI neurobots, and the full-fledged marketplace for selling their products. They can place their designed neurobot on the marketplace and rent it out or sell to different people without special knowledge. For example, like me, I don't know any programming language, but I can go into OLPORTAL application and I can create a chat assistant, a neurobot for a company, just to, let's say, a healthcare company or another, and I can offer it for sale. Then we're going to have our payment in-app payment system. We have already implemented our wallet, a digital wallet in our application, and we are going to use the system for all the transaction within OLPORTAL concerning neurobots and their implementation and advertising campaigns and services. And I'll target as the advertising as a part of our ecosystem for advertising. And as the environment, we're going to have different partnering companies like me messengers that will provide the infrastructure and the environment for functioning of our neurobots. If you want to have a try, you can download it, as Alex said, from Google Play or App Store. You can try them in chat, try answering like any of these characters or others. We have many of them. We are ready to create a neurobot for our partners as a partner program. So if you want to try, if you want to be one of the first companies who's gonna see OLTarget working, you can reach Alex and tell him about that. And we invite different companies like messengers to embark on our project if their API is okay for us to develop a structure with neurobots as in IME Messenger, a client based on API of Telegram. We welcome these companies and these messengers. So if you would like me to explain anything more, please let me know.
Yes, thank you, Victoria. We've got one more question. And do you know how these bots can help some mediations or something like that because of that kind of virus situation around? So people so care about that. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Could you please repeat the question from the beginning? How can you
how neurobots can help to provide some medical services or something like that in our difficult coronavirus situation or something?
You know, many companies use AI-based instruments to provide the information around the world about the number of people that got ill and so on and so forth. As for our service, maybe the best implementation, you can, for example, enter, yes, we can program a bot and you can enter your symptomatics, and this bot, according to this, somehow will react and give you a piece of advice. The better, but it takes a lot of efforts to develop such kind of bot. We're not going to substitute nurses or doctors, but we can take on ourselves to optimize some regular interactions with doctors, between doctors and patients, starting from making an appointment to see the doctor for different clinics, not to call all of their administrative staff to go to work during this coronavirus period. I think in such a way. And after the pandemic, after everything ends, I think many would like to reorganize their work. Many would move to the digital sphere, those who haven't done it yet. And many would prefer to have a kind of passive income. And we can suggest trying creating AI products.
And Alex and Vika, the next question to both of you: why Hedera? Why decentralized platform? You can do it centralized as well.
I can answer that. Why Hedera? The first part. Why Hedera? Just because it's fast, it's cheap, and it's secure. And why we use the decentralized model? It's written in an article on our Medium. I can share if, Victoria, can you please stop sharing your screen so I can share
Yeah,
my...
sure.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. Is the no? Strange. So we have an article called "Is the decentralization of the IoT and AI possible with all portals chatbot, and why we have chosen decentralized model?" Do you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also answering on previous question, we have the article "How all portals customized chatbots can be better alternatives to centralized models in times of COVID-19." So it's for the person who asked about
everything is in
yes.
FAQ and
Yes.
Medium.
Yes, now, it's hard to explain in several words, but I will try. If we talk about rewards and passive income, we must be absolutely transparent. So for persons who use our bots and for companies who pay them through our ecosystem, through our all-portal system, it must be very transparent. So that's why we store every transaction and every significant action of every bot used in our system. We will store an decentralized ledger by Hedera Hashgraph. Blockchain is not suitable here because it's very slow and it's very expensive. So the best alternative for us is to use DLT by Hedera Hashgraph.
That's great. So all the questions are over, and so perhaps someone from our collaboration can ask. I see also people. That's okay. So we can finish our meetup, and that's very interesting experiment in my opinion, and we will look at all and estimate it, but I'm happy to have you there, and thank you very much. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Tom. Sorry, Arvidas has to left us, so we can't hear him. And thank you, OLPORTAL team. Thank you, Alex. Thank
Sergey?
you. Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your attention, and please, if you have any questions or partnership agreement is ready for everybody, because we are ready to work with every company and every business. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.